Hello, beautiful knitters. This is Rachel, Treehouse Knits. Welcome to episode 26 of the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I've had a very fun week, a couple of weeks. So I look forward to sharing with you some of the things I've done, worked on, and also some fun things that I've received in the mail. First off, we are coming to a close. March 31st is the end of our Kit Along 2018. If you have already put some objects in the finished objects page, thank you. We have some great objects. We have over, I think, 43 objects, and just some of these in here are so cool. I thought I'd show you some if you don't have a chance to take a look. That is a beautiful cowl by one of our maker friends. Look at that awesome hat. Some really cool mittens. That's the Scania shawl kit. We even have a cross stitcher in the group who's done a really pretty cross stitch. And you can just see Scania shawl. Maybe that other one wasn't the Scania shawl. This is a particular mitten kit that someone won from me. If you recall, that was a giveaway several podcasts ago, and it's knit up. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous with piece fleece? Very cool hat. Another cross stitch. Beautiful shawls. There's gorgeous Shelly wearing her sweater kit. That's a really cool kind of fade going on there. Another person who actually took a mitten kit and used it to do a sweater, which I thought was a really cool way to use that kit, the yarn. As you can see, gorgeous projects in there. So thank you to all of you who've already participated. If you get your work done before March 31st, I think that's Saturday, put it in the FO page. If not, just put it in the works in progress page, the chatter thread, I should say, because I'll be drawing from that as well. So let us know your progress. This is not a competition to get something done by March 31st, it was just something for us to knit together, work on those kits that we have. So there's 3 places that you can win the amazing prizes, and I'll put a picture again of the prizes here. I'll be drawing from 3 places. I'll be drawing from the finished objects thread on the Ravelry podcast page. I'll be drawing from the chatter thread, and I'll also be drawing from the Instagram thread, which was #KitAlong2018. So post your finished objects or your works in progress there as well. So that's the Kit Along. Thanks again for participating. That was so much fun. I got Soren, you can see him peeking back here. Got him done, but I have not started working on his mate. He needs a mate. I think that'll be a nice summer project. I like to do toys, a few toys in the summer. So that's the Kit Along. We also have the Year of the Mitten Cal going on. I have a podcast page on Ravelry thread for that as well. So if you finish some mittens this year, put them in there. We just drew last episode for a winner there. I'll be drawing probably quarterly this year, so I will now be drawing, I think it's from thread 136 forward. Post your pictures of your Scandinavian style color work mittens in there. Okay, so that is the administrative stuff. So how are you? What have you guys been working on? Let me know down below what you're working on and having fun doing in the spring. I know sometimes spring hits, the warmer weather comes, and we start to pull back a little bit from our knitting, and that is totally fine. So I'm just curious what you're working on these days. I have one finished object. Actually, I have 2 finished objects. The first one I posted on Instagram yesterday or a couple days ago. I had a poll on Instagram asking if I should do the bind off in this purpley hot pink color, or if I should do it in Hedgehog's Envy, which is a really bright green color. And most people said the hot pink. So that's what I did. It's kind of looking purplish in this light. But I love how it turned out. This is the Ara shawl by Andrea Mowry, and I used Stitch Together Studios. It was a gradient speckled pack of this white and gray. I started out with a little a little remnant I had of hedgehog typewriter, which worked in really well. So that gave me a little more real estate on my shawl, which I liked. And then when I got down to the lace section, you can see the lace here better. It's just a feather and fan kind of lace, but I ran, because the row was so long on the shawl at the end, I ran out of the darkest color. So I just went into my stash and picked out a black. The only black I had was in a sport weight, and it happened to be this Regia Active, which, you know what? I just thought, well, I'll try it because I wanted it to be even darker at the edge anyway, and it worked just fine. So this year I'm trying to use my stash as much as possible. I am still acquiring other yarns, but I am trying to use stash. So instead of going to the yarn store and getting maybe something that was similar to this darker color, I just decided to use stash. It worked. And then I had a little bit of this hedgehog. That's Sorry Not Sorry, that hot pink purpley color. So it just, lovely shawl. I'm really happy with it. I modified it a little bit. It's a little bit bigger. I did a few extra repeats of this eyelet section just to use up my yarn. I wanted to use the whole gradient pack and get all those colors in there, and I like a little bit bigger shawl. So there's the Ara shawl, and any information, the details can be found on my Ravelry page, which I've updated now for that shawl. Okay, so the other thing that I finished this week were my Grand Treat, or my fir tree mittens. And I did receive in the mail from Patricia my beautiful mitten blockers from Norway. These are from birch trees, many of you know, off of her farm in Norway that she's had cut, I don't think maybe laser cut, and then she uses a wax. She waxes them herself on her little farm, but they are the perfect shape. And here are my mittens. I talked in detail about them last time. It's based on the Hans, actually 2 times ago, based on the Hans Christian Andersen story, The Fir Tree. Just Google that and there you can read the story online. It's a really great story. I especially love the birds on the thumb and the little bunnies down below. The tree, I think, is so beautiful, and I love how the designer, who is, oh, I lost my page. The designer is Moifrid Engeset. This is going to be another episode where I'm trying my best to use the Norwegian language properly, but I apologize if I slaughtered her name. What a thrill to get her to actually like my mittens on Instagram. But I love how she has made the trunk of the tree a couple of purl stitches instead of just knit. And I love the cuffs too. One thing that was very interesting is we've had some really cold days and we've had some warm days here in Michigan. And I worked on the first mitten on a cold day where my hands were dry and cold, and I got what I consider my normal gauge. And then there was a really warm day where I was working on these mittens. My hands were a little clammy and I felt like I was knitting tighter. I was trying to knit looser, but I just couldn't. So what happened was this mitten is a bit shorter. The row gauge is a bit shorter, and I had to block this one a little heavier. If I take it off the sock blocker, you can kind of see a difference in the size. And when I did the, I kind of looked at the gauge of both, and this gauge is like 1.5 stitches more, which makes a smaller mitten. So about 1.5 stitches more per inch. So I thought that was interesting, something to consider. Just to, I don't know how you would consider that, because you want to knit when you want to knit, but that's just what happened to me with the mittens. I used the same number. I was very careful. I used the same chart So I'm not sure. That's the only thing I can think of, is that I was knitting a bit tighter because my hands were warmer and a little clammier. So weird. But that is the fir tree mittens, and it's out of this book. I got my book from Patricia as well, and this has been so much fun. Patricia on her channel is walking us kind of through the book, helping us with the language. It is all in Norwegian, but I've been really marking up my book whenever she you know, just to know what the words are in Norwegian for needles and yarn and gauge and cast on. Once you know those words, then you really can kind of follow every pattern in this book because they are all charted. So I'm really excited about those mittens. So that puts me to 4 mittens, I guess 4 pairs of mittens this year that I have completed. And since I had a pair off the needles, that means I get to put a new pair on, and I kind of went a little crazy this week and got one of the mittens done. But this particular pair of mittens, I'd seen it before on Ravelry and I thought they were neat, but when I saw them in person on Patricia's podcast, her vlog, I just kind of fell in love with them and I was drawn to them. I just thought they looked really nice in person, like I said, on the video. So I went ahead and got the design. It's called the Lillehammer Mittens, and it's by Tori Serstad. And she's a part of the Mitten Guild in Norway that has written the Eventervater book. But this was a pair of mittens that she created on her own, and you can find these on Ravelry in English. So I got the pattern and I just read the blurb at the top about the pattern. The lady figure in this pattern, let me put a picture here of what the mittens look like. Okay, so the lady figure on the one mitten is Inga of Vartig, and she was born in 1185. Who was the mistress of King Håkon III of Norway and the mother of King Håkon IV of Norway. The man figure on the other mitten is a Birkebeiner. And she writes, in 1206, the Birkebeiners set off on a dangerous journey through treacherous mountains and forests, taking the now 2-year-old Håkon Håkonsson to safety. The Birkebeiner ski race commemorates this. There's also a ski race named after Inga, who's the little Håkon, his mother. The Birkebeiner is also the motif of Lillehammer's coat of arms. So I remember the Lillehammer Olympics. I was a kid, I think, when it was going on, living at home, and I remember we were watching the Olympics, and just my dad's Norwegian, and we were watching it and saying, wow, Dad looks like a lot of those people in the stands, just the same coloring. And just he looked like that was his people. So we commented about that. So when I read this little paragraph that Tori has at the top, I saw the name King Håkon. And that I thought to myself, now that is a name that is in the genealogy information that my father got after he did he went through the ancestry.com stuff. And, you know, I've talked about, we've got this whole packet of our heritage traced back to Olaf the Woodcutter, born in 684 AD. So I remember seeing in the information in one of the generations, this King Håkon, and indeed he is here, and he is, I figured it out, he is my first cousin 22 times removed, which is hilarious. I mean, I'm sure we're all related to this guy somehow, but it is really fun to actually see how I'm related, and it's gotten me to kind of look more into the history. And then with these mittens, you read about the history and it just makes me want to dive into more. That's just the kind of person I am. I like to learn a little bit more, and I love, love, love history. So I read on our information about King Håkon, and I read that his story is really the story of Lillehammer, and he was the first formally educated king. He ruled for 46 years, and the time that he ruled is kind of known as the Golden Years of Norway. He was really born into a civil war, and the Civil War was between, I think, many different groups, but the main groups were the Birkebeeiners, who the mitten is about, and King Håkon, and the Baglers. So I wanted to learn more about the story, and I'm finding that there's a lot of Norwegian stories that have been written in children form. So I just went onto Amazon and I typed in Birkebeeiners, maybe I even typed in King Håkon, and this children's storybook came up. So I went ahead and bought it. It was really reasonable. I think it was like $6. And this is called The Race of the Birkebeeiners, and it is about King Håkon when he was a little baby and how he was taken across the mountains from, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's from the Lillehammer area to Nidaros, which is the old name for Trondheim. And to get from there to there, you have to go over really treacherous mountains. And that taking him across those mountains, that baby would take him to safety. That baby, King Håkon, was a descendant of King Håkon III, and the Baglers were trying to kill him. But the Birkebeeiners wanted to save him so that they'd have an heir to the throne. And so, in essence, what happens is these two individuals and Inga, Håkon's mother, traveled across the mountains. They're called the Birkebeeiners because they wore for their armor birch bark. Birkebeiner means birch legs. So they wrapped the birch bark around their legs, and you can see that in the picture in the front. And they carried the little baby to safety. So this book on the back says, it is the year 1206, and deep in the snow-covered mountains and valleys of Norway, the fiercest warriors in the land struggle to ski a baby to safety. This is the story of the Birkebeeiners and how they saved the infant Prince Håkon by skiing across the mountains in the dead of winter. It is an untold story of bravery and tenderness. The author of the story is Lisa Lunge Larsen. She was born and raised in Norway, but she now lives in Minnesota. And what really drew me to this particular book was the artist, what she's created here. This is actually woodcut. So the illustrations are actually woodcuts that are hand tinted with watercolor. And you can see that that is all cut. The illustrations are beautiful. I love the artwork. Here's the old stave church. I mean, you could frame every one of these pictures. But what a neat story. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, I would head over to Amazon and pick up this book for your library, or pick it up from your library and read it. But just the details that she's wood carved and then painted in watercolor, telling the story of this baby and how they fled to safety over the mountains. It took them a few days. All they had to feed the baby, I guess, was snow, is what they say in the saga. And the prince in the end is saved and becomes King Håkon, who is my, again, first cousin 22 times removed. So I love that story. I hope I explained it well enough to you. It's just really, really fun to learn about these individuals. None of them are perfect, that's for sure. When you read about some of the things that they did, we don't understand it living in this time, but back then, I like to think they were doing what they knew, what they could do. So anyway, let's get back to the knitting. So that inspired me to get moving. As you recall, last episode, I showed you some of the amazing yarns that I got from my friends in Norway and my friends in Finland. And I decided to go ahead and start using some of that yarn. So here is my first mitten. There's Inga skiing. And the back of the mitten, I was curious why Tori picked that, and then I read that this is in reference to the Olympics in Lillehammer. So I went online and I just plugged in Lillehammer Olympics, and I'll put a picture right here of the design from the Olympics. So there you go. Now, you're probably saying, why is there a little stitch marker there? Well, as I was, when I got to the top of my mitten, the top you just do a Kitchener stitch across, I noticed one side had 14 and one side only had 13, and I didn't look down to see why I dropped, what happened. I thought, oh, I probably just missed a decrease, no big deal. And then I went ahead and put these in the water and blocked them, pulled them out, dried them, and then I discovered that there is a drop stitch there. So I'm just gonna tack that in. It's not going anywhere. It didn't have a marker on it for the longest time, and it was just sticking there. That's the beauty of this particular wool. What is the wool I'm using? The blue wool is the gorgeous Tinde Pelso yarn. And this I got from my friend Lynn. I love this yarn. I learned about it first probably from Diana Walla's episode on Norwegian wools, and it's got a beautiful halo. It starts out naturally with a gray tone, so when they dye it, it just gets this beautiful depth of color in the blue, and it has a bit of a halo. Now the cream color, this is a little interesting. Again, I'm trying to use up yarns I have. Now this blue yarn, the Pelso yarn, is a sport weight, this Tinde. And I've decided I really like the sport weight for my hand size. It creates a mitten that just, I feel like it's warmer, and I like bigger mittens in Michigan. You just need to be warmer here in the winter. So I wished I would have had some Tinde in a natural color, but I knew I had a natural cream color in the phenol yarn that I got, which is fingering weight. So I just thought, well, why don't I just hold the two fingering weights together, since I've heard from other people that this fingering weight phenol yarn, you can use different size needles with the same yarn, and it just adjusts itself, I guess, if that makes sense. So I thought, well, let me hold two together and see what happens. And it worked out just fine. Worked out great for me. The reason it's pulling in here is because of this particular design. It's not because, the white is thicker. So I think it worked out fine, and I'm going to try that with my other. I should try the sport weight version of the Rauma as well, but I want to use what I have on hand. So that's the mitten, and if you have any questions about anything else, just give me a shout down below, or give me a Ravelry message. You can find all the information, as I mentioned, on my Ravelry page. But this has been a lot of fun. My next mitten will be the right mitten, and that will be the picture of one of the Birkebeiners with the baby. So I'm excited to do that. And there's something about mittens that are different that I am appreciating, because I kind of do get second mitten syndrome, I'm finding, when they're identical. So those are mainly my works in progress. I also have another pair of mittens that I haven't really worked on much, which I want to get back to, and some socks. I also want to start another shawl and just have that on the needles too. I haven't touched my sweater. I have a feeling that's going to probably wait till the fall now. One thing I wanted to tell you about, a couple of weeks ago, our guild meeting, I led a discussion about color using a really neat series that Sweet Georgia Yarn has created. I can't think of the founder of Sweet Georgia Yarn, but she's got a great podcast that I do enjoy listening to. And she mentioned that she was starting the School of Sweet Georgia. If you go to schoolofsweetgeorgia.com, she has a basic color theory class online that's free if you just register with the website. So I took a look at that and used that for our guild. And what it is it's a couple of videos, and after each video she has some discussion questions based on the video, and it seemed to work really well, and I thought some of you might be interested in that. She talks about color theory, what colors work well together, why do we like certain colors, and really a really nice intro for us knitters. We've all gone to the yarn store or gone online, and we want to pick something for a color work project, and we just don't know what that color is that'll give a that'll complement, or we're not quite sure if we could put these two colors together. This is a class that kind of helps you through that dialogue in your mind as you're selecting yarns for your projects. So take a look at that if you're interested. Also, I haven't done much sewing the last couple of weeks, but I'm really excited about Carrie's new video. She's the Creative Obsession video podcast here on YouTube. She did I think it's like an hour-long podcast where she shows you, it's kind of an introduction to quilt making. You end up with a table runner, and she's created 3 different motifs or 3 different quilting style or patterns that will teach you different things. So I'm really looking forward to gathering up some of my fabric in my stash and making a table runner and following her tutorial. She is definitely an expert quilter, has a long arm in her craft room, and it's just a really well thought out video. I've listened to the video in its entirety, and now I'm ready to sit down with some fabric and do some cutting and piecing and see how that all goes. I had a fun visit last Saturday with Despondent Dyes came to my local yarn shop, Michigan Fiber Studio, and did a trunk show. It was so great to meet those 2 ladies. It's a mother-daughter, and I've followed them on Instagram for a while. A few months ago, they asked to the Instagram world, where should we go for our trunk shows? And I threw out my location here in Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Michigan Fiber Studio, and they ended up coming, which was just kind of a shock. That they're from Oregon, so that's a long haul. They did a little tour of Lake Michigan while they were here, and it was just really great to meet them. They have gorgeous yarns, and their yarn names are just as funny and cool as their yarns are beautiful. They I'm sure a lot of you have seen them before. This is their logo. It's Despondent Dyes. We set our colors with the acidity of our bitter tears. Cracks me up. And their names are all like this one here. This is called Re-Entering the Workforce Blues. They have an alter ego. I forget what the name of their alter ego is, but she's the one that comes up with these names. I think she's had a rough life. This one's called You'll Do. And this one is called Insignificant Other. These 3 kind of all go together. They're all 100% merino, superwash merino, but they're all 100% superwash merino. I didn't want any nylon in them. I want to use them for shawls, and I've noticed that some of my shawls that are made with, you know, the sock yarn kind of superwash merino nylon, I will block them, but they spring back within, you know, a week. So going forward, if I'm getting something for a shawl, I am going to just get pure 100% superwash merino or merino specifically. I was drawn to these colors. I don't have a lot of blue in my wardrobe, and I am excited to start Curious Handmade, Helen Stewart. She's doing another mystery knit along. I did her mystery knit along last year, and it's an impressionist make along. That's the name of the cowl, is Impressionist Knit Along, something like that. But it comes out, the first clue comes out March 31st, and she suggests you pick a speckled yarns, 3 of them, in a darker, a medium, and a light. So I thought this might look beautiful. And she says it's her typical type of romantic, lacy, advanced beginner kind of shawl. So I look forward to this hopefully being my kind of palette cleanser from all the color work that I've been doing. I just need a little mindless knitting, not following a chart or anything. I also picked up this skein. This is called Lipstick on His Collar. I've seen this knit up, and the way that they dye it, it knits up, the color disperses so beautifully, and they had a sample of what it looked like there too. So this could also be the light version, picking up the purple. I'm curious what you think. Would you guys let me know down below if you like the 3 with the purple and then the pink, or do you like me to kind of stay with the blues? when I'm looking in the screen, I'm changing my mind. So, I'm curious what you guys think. So that was the great visit with Despondent Dyes. Some of the other things I've been enjoying or continue to enjoy, the rescued photo on Instagram. I just love reading what she's doing. This is a knitter friend that goes around to various places and purchases old photos of people that have been probably discarded or given to Goodwill or who knows. And with some of them, her curiosity leads her to kind of look them up and see who these individuals are and what their stories are. And sometimes these people have amazing stories, and she does weave in some historical context as well. I really enjoy that. She even has found family members that, you know, these photos are of their ancestors, and has reconnected these people with the photos. So I think that's cool too. So I've been enjoying that. I just finished 2 books by Lisa C. They're a series. The name of the books, The Shanghai Girls and Dreams of Joy. If you like historical fiction and you like to learn about women in other cultures, that's a fabulous book. I highly recommend both those books. And I've also enjoyed following, this is a new Instagram site by Jenny and Devin. They've just recently purchased a farm, a fiber farm, and they are now, their Instagram is Our House Barn Life. So at Our House Barn Life, and it's going to be so fun to follow them as they achieve their dream of having fiber animals and creating a farm. I think it's so neat to watch people who want to actually start farming, because it's an industry that has just had some sad times, and for people to want to start farming, and especially fiber farming, I think is really cool. So I'm following that. Check them out. Again, it's at Our House Barn Life. Which kind of leads me to my next thing I wanted to share with you. We got our guild yarn back from the mill. If you'll recall, I did a visit to Never Say Never Farm. That's been many, many podcasts ago. And then my guild went to a shearing at the farm, and we selected 2 fleeces. One fleece is Storm. She is a CVM Merino Cross, and the other fleece is from Helen, who is a registered CVM. A CVM is a California variegated mutant. That's what it means. And this particular breed, I'm in my Fleece and Fiber source book, is basically a Rommeldale. And a Rommeldale is a cross of a Romney with a Rambouillet. So right there, you know, it has the strength of the Romney with the softness. I love Rambouillet. I think Rambouillet is similar feel to like Brooklyn Tweed. I think they use Rambouillet in the shelter yarn. And some breeders consider still the CVMs to be simply a colored strain of a Rommeldale, while others consider CVMs to be a distinct breed. But they are considered critically rare by the American Livestock Breeds Conservancy. And the farm, Never Say Never Farm, has CVMs. It's literally, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes from my house. So this is definitely a place-based yarn, soulful stash. And I thought I'd just kind of tell you now a little bit more about this yarn that we received. A few episodes ago, I do have a podcast where we visited the mill and watched this yarn get spun up. But I'll first start out with Storm. And let me just give you some details, because this whole process has been not only fun, but really enlightening and eye-opening. Storm, here she is. The best the mill could do with the fleece from Storm was a worsted weight. It just spun up so beautifully and cushiony. They added a little bit of merino to this. So this is Storm plus just a little bit of merino. Storm is a merino CVM cross anyway. And it's just a lovely natural creamy color. Each skein is about 200 yards of this worsted weight. So I thought it'd be interesting to just, I kind of did the numbers. I looked at how much the fleece cost us, how much the milling cost us, and now what it costs per gram, basically. We started out with Storm weighing 12 pounds. It was a 12-pound fleece. And in the processing, we lost about 45 to 50%, which is pretty typical when you're, I mean, this is, you know, has the lanolin and just the fibers that we couldn't use. So with the fleece price and the processing cost, one skein of Storm here comes to about $19 per skein. So, and we got a discount on our fleece because the guild, the woman who owns the fiber mill is a member of our guild. So she gave us a 25% discount, which was so gracious of her to do. So at best, you know, $19 for 200 yards. So talk about enlightening. I know a lot of people balk at prices for farm yarns, you know, wow, it's so expensive, why isn't it cheaper? It's coming right from the farm. But these things cost money to process. And I tell you, that mill that we worked with in Bridgman, the hoof to hanger mill, worked so hard for several days on our fiber. So I'm very much appreciative of the cost of things. And then if you talk about 200 yards of this getting dyed by an indie dyer, $27 a skein. I mean, they're really only making maybe at best $10 a skein, and that's got to cover their overhead. So people who are in this industry are not in it to make money. They're in it because they love. And I've heard people say that, but until you really spend your own money to go from hoof to skein, you don't realize that. So anyway, I wanted to just share that. I hope that's of interest to you, and I hope it doesn't offend anybody who doesn't want to talk about money or price, but I think it's just really important for us as consumers to value what we're getting. Okay, so that is Storm. And then Helen, we picked her fleece for the color. It's this really light brown grayish color, and she is a registered CVM, pure CVM. This is so soft. I didn't mention that to you on the holding up Storm, but I mean, it is next to skin soft. You could make a hat, a cowl out of this, and this would dye it beautifully. This kind of reminds me of maybe what that Tinde is sort of like before it's dyed in my mittens that I mentioned that I got from my friend in Norway, the Tinde. This is actually spun up in a fingering weight. So we did get some fingering weight. And I don't know, did I mention that for Storm, with her 12 pounds of fleece, and we lost almost half her weight, we got 27 skeins out of her. So that's, what is that? 27, that's 5,400 yards of yarn from a 12-pound fleece. Just kind of interesting. Now with Helen, we got fingering weight. We got about 3,200 yards from, she was only 6 pounds, 11 ounces. And she also lost about half her weight. So a cost for 200 yards of Helen here, this is only 200 yards. Most of our fingering weights we get in 400 yards is about $13 a skein at cost. So to get 400 yards, which is a typical fingering weight skein, that would be about $26 a skein. And we got a discount on the fleece. So, oh, I love this. It's worth every penny. It's gorgeous. We will be selling these to our guild members and working on a dye class in about a month. We'll be doing a natural dye class, so some of our guild members may enjoy using these skeins to do some dyeing as well. So I just wanted to share that with you. These are the things that our guild does. If you're part of the guild, I would love to know what are some of the things your guild does. Just let me know down below. I'm always looking for other opportunities for our group. Did you happen to catch a brief Instagram post from Kate Davies about the Carbeth sweater and how she's now writing up she's done the Carbeth, which is the cropped version of that really cool sweater. I'll put a picture in here. She's also created the Carbeth cardigan version, which I mentioned last time, and I thought maybe that one's for me. But, and here's a picture of it there. But then she had an Instagram post this past week about how she's taken the Carbeth and she is writing up a new, more tunic length pattern that has lace detail. Check this out. I think that one's for me. I'm gonna wait for that one to come out. So I was just excited about that, wanted to share that with you in case you missed that really quick Instagram post. I know Instagram has been a little wonky with being able to see the posts you want to see and in order timeline. So I've been missing a lot of posts, and I'm sure you have too. The last thing I wanted to talk about, this is kind of exciting as well. With this kit along, I've realized that I think kits are really an important part of our knitting, what we can buy, because a lot of yarn stores have closed and a lot of our buying is online. When I worked in the yarn store, we'd have people come in who just wanted me, I feel like I have a humpback here. This, by the way, is my Stephen West Doodler. Yes, this is a Parendale, Crown Mountain Parendale fleece, dyed fleece that my mother-in-law spun up, and this is a Richard DeVries yarn. But anyway, I've worn this before. So anyway, back to what was I talking about? Oh, yes. So I really think these kits that these companies are putting together fill a need where when I worked in the yarn store, people would come in and they just wanted me to show them a pattern and tell them what yarn to use. And they wanted to know that it was going to turn out beautifully. And they wanted to see a sample and see what it was going to look like and just be confident in their purchase. And I think these companies that are coming out that are creating these kits where there's a yarn and the pattern, I think it's a great idea to fill that need. I had the folks at Knitcrate contact me, and I've seen Mina, the knitting expat, talk about them. And then recently I heard Very Pink, who I admire so much. Her tutorial videos on YouTube are incredible. You know about Very Pink Knits. She's talked about Knitcrate. So when they contacted me, I said, yes, I would love to see your product. And I received a Knitcrate in the mail just to see what it was like. I got the Knitcrate for this month, which is called Sugar Sugar. And what you get inside is some Uru yarn, which is in one of two colors, either peachy, four colors, either peachy queen, blueberry, lavender, or periwinkle. And you also get a pattern. You get a crochet pattern and a knit pattern. And they link to a site where you can get the electronic version of the pattern. So you're getting two skeins for really the price of one, because I think this particular Knitcrate is like $30. And these are the really beautiful skeins, and you can see that it's got a sparkle. I got the pink. I guess there is a Ravelry page for Knitcrate where you can trade with other people if you're not really into that color, but I love this color. And I just think it's a really cool idea. Now I will show you, they give you a sample of, this is the knit design, the Chelsea Burkompus. It's just a beautiful shawl. I mean, I would totally wear that. I think it looks great in the yarn. You get to do a little bit of lace work, and even though the yarn has some speckles in it, it shows the lace work really well. So well thought out pattern. Or a pair of crochet socks, which I never thought about crocheting socks, I guess. So if you're a crocheter, this Knitcrate is also for you. Or you can do whatever you want with it. Two skeins of one color is great to have. And there's 399 yards and 100 grams, which is the weight I like, better than the 460 yards. I like a little plumper fingering weight. So I think this is a really cool idea. And if you are interested, Knitcrate has offered my viewers a 20% discount on their first order. So you can see the link down below here. And I just, I'm pretty picky about showing items on my podcast, and this particular one I was impressed with. I checked out their Instagram feed, and a couple of people who I know who also like it, I really respect. So I wanted to share it with you. I thought it would be a great idea. In case any of you are interested, I wanted to make sure you did get the 20% off code down below. So thank you so much for Knitcrate for sending me this just to kind of check it out. And do check out Knitcrate either on Instagram or on their website, which is, I'm assuming, knitcrate.com. All right, so friends, that is it. That is the end of the podcast for today. I hope you enjoyed learning about some of the things I'm working on. I'm curious what you're working on. Thank you to everyone who has liked my podcast in the past underneath, giving it a thumbs up. I really appreciate that, and I love to hear from you down below or hear from you on the Ravelry page for the podcast. It's just great getting to know you all. One last thing, I will be at YarnCon in like a week. I think it's not this Saturday, but next Saturday, April 7th in Chicago. If you're going to be at YarnCon, I want to meet you. Let's just, please tap me on the shoulder if you see me. You know what I look like. I don't know what a lot of you look like. So when you introduce yourself, if you can just give me your Ravelry name or your Instagram name, that would be awesome. I would love to meet you guys. So I will be there with some members of my guild. We're actually taking a train in that day and a train back home. So we're going to have a good 3.5, 4 hours of knitting each way, which will be hopefully a lot of fun. I know it's going to be fun coming home. We might all be exhausted, but I'm looking forward to YarnCon and hope to see some of you local people there. But if I don't see you, we'll see you on the next episode of Treehouse Knits. Bye.